Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Austin, how are you this evening, man? Is it still snowing in Michigan?
So the snow is actually melting a little bit here in the state of Michigan, at least in the area that I have. It's been a little bit warmer as of late, but that just means more snow is coming. It is still January. It is when the groundhog is going to be able to predict that we're going to get a little bit of an early spring. So still waiting on that type of season, but got a new hat to be able to go on to the show
sweet,
today,
Brooklyn.
which is a sweet hat to be able to wear, and excited to be able to continue to talk some more Dodgers baseball. Obviously, there's not a ton in the news right now, but it's going to be a good chance for us to be able to continue to have this interaction throughout the course of the offseason and discuss as many different angles as possible. And if it is something where, man, we can do a lot of different things with the show tonight. If you want the opportunity to be able to tune in and join in with the show, I know Casey provides a lot of that opportunity with his solo shows, but to be able to interact with both Casey and I and pick our brains on very specific ideas, I'm sure there's a way where Casey and I can make that a real possibility for you to be able to join into the show. It's going to be a fun show for us to be able to go and talk a lot about different things, but we want to form it based off what you guys want. So if you want to join into the show, join into the show. If you want to leave a bunch of questions for us in the comment section, do that as well. And we'll have a good, fun night here on this Wednesday night.
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually had a chance to interview Jaron Elkins this week. If you have not had a chance to check that out, I released that today. Jaron's one of the most toolsy outfield prospects in all of baseball. He led the Cal League in stolen bases. He was, I believe, 11th in the Cal League in home runs. He was 15th in batting average. Now he struck out. He also led the Cal League in strikeouts too. Got to be very transparent about that. But this is a young man that's extremely talented. It's super cool to get to catch up with him. And then also going to release probably tomorrow, I got to catch up with Adam Serwanowski. And so Big Ski joined. Big Ski is awesome, man.
Yeah.
It was like 40 to 45 minutes. He just did a great job describing everything, his pitch mix and his history coming over to the Dodgers from the Reds organization. He actually was his third pitcher, his number 3 on his high school team, as unbelievable as that sounds. And so the reason why I thought of Big Ski is because you mentioned the snow in Michigan right now, and he's from South Carolina, which is, I mean, it's 3 hours from the beach, right? I mean, it's a warmer climate.
Yeah.
And so we got to laughing, and some of our fun questions I asked him. I said, hey, far cry from what's the coldest moment you spent in the Midwest League? In the Midwest League this year, you're from South Carolina. He goes, well, it's quite different from the temperatures that I'm used to in South Carolina. He goes, it has to be that first game in Great Lakes, the very first game of the year. It was freezing. So that got me thinking about that when you're talking about the snow in Michigan.
Oh, yeah. No, and just thinking about where he was. So Adam Serwanowski was part of the Ben Rortvedt, Hunter Fiducia type of trade that also brought in Paul Gervais. He's kind of the one that often gets forgot about in case you aren't aware of who we're talking about. Big Ski, Adam Serwanowski, probably the highlight of that trade with how good he has shown to be and what his promise is going to be in the future.
Rortvedt was pretty good.
Yeah, Rortvedt was really good for the role that he played, above and beyond what the Dodgers would have expected him to be able to do. But Adam Serwanowski started the season in Dayton, Ohio, a bit more south. You're getting close to Kentucky type of area, and you're talking about April time period. So it's funny that Adam Serwanowski, even though earlier in the season he probably had a start or two in Dayton before he went up to Great Lakes in April, which I actually was at that start that Adam Serwanowski was talking about. And it gets a little bit chilly in Midland, Michigan in the month of April, but that's what we're thinking about right now is baseball being able to come back. So glad that Adam Serwanowski, Big Ski, is not on the Dayton Dragons anymore. He's part of the Dodgers organization, who was part of the Great Lakes Loons.
So we're going to hear from him tomorrow. Go ahead and talk about Adam Serwanowski. We're going to get to the Brusdar Graterol talk here in a minute. We're going to get to some Freddie Peralta talk. Probably going to touch the Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette conversation. We're going to touch on that again. But for right now, hey, Adam Serwanowski, Big Ski. This is a guy that is Rule 5 eligible this time next year, about 11 months from now. So he will be on the 40-man roster by this time next year. Somebody's 40-man. If the Dodgers don't put him on theirs, somebody else will pick him up in the Rule 5 draft. So why do I say that? This is a 6'5" a guy who has a slurve and a big fastball, a cut ride fastball. So not only is his fastball good, like Emmett Sheehan's is a ride and run fastball. Most fastballs are run type fastballs, like the lefties, you call them tailing away. His is a cut fastball. He didn't even realize he threw a cut fastball till he got into college. Or he actually didn't go to college, but till he talked to a couple of people. Actually, don't quote me on exactly. I can't remember. You can find out in the interview tomorrow. Somebody at a higher level told him he cut the ball, and he actually didn't know that. He's not big into analytics. He doesn't dive into like the TrackMan type of stuff. So he has a very unique fastball because it's a cut fastball versus a run fastball, and it also has ride. So he calls it a ride cut fastball, a slurvy type curveball, and then a changeup. So he was a 2-pitch pitcher forever. He's adding the changeup. Super talented young man, and he has the unique windup that we go over quite a bit in the conversation that we have. So I wanted to cover Big Ski Adam Serwinowski right off the bat. I'm releasing his interview tomorrow. Kind of break down just how good he was once he came over to the Loons.
Yeah, he was really good when he came over to the Loons. You mentioned that a little bit of that unique windup, but what I really liked about Big Ski when he came over was just that supreme confidence that he had on the mound, which you could tell, especially down the stretch. He came in during the month of August during a time period in which the Loons were fighting for a playoff spot, and it felt like every single time that Adam Serwinowski took the mound, he felt in command, in the zone, and just everything felt right about him being on the mound. 6 starts with Great Lakes in the Dodgers organization, 1.83 ERA. The FIP and expected FIPs in the low to mid threes. Struck out 31% of hitters during that time period. Walked less than 10%. Batting average against was 189. He was somebody that was just really efficient, really good at what he was able to do. A lot of dominant stuff. And this is another thing that you can go ahead and look at. During that time period at Great Lakes, it was a 16.5 swinging strike percentage, meaning 16.5% of the pitches that he threw ended up as swings and misses. 32.3 called plus swinging strike percentage, which is really good for him as well. Adam Serwinowski, he just gets into a role when he's going out there, which this isn't the game that was his best game. His best game was the next start when he's wearing when he was wearing the Charlie Brown Christmas uniforms. This one right here against the West Michigan
shall receive, right?
Yep. This was
Look at that slurve. He calls that a slurve, by the way.
Yeah. This was his 12 strikeout performance that Big Ski was able to have against one of the best offenses in the Midwest League and in minor league baseball, level dependent. Big Ski, Adam Serwinowski, went out there and absolutely shoved. He has a chance to be able to continue to do that with some of the best development and pitching coaches in the business. Big Ski, can't wait to watch him in 2026.
Who's that?
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, Big Ski. Also, released today our interview with Jaron Elkins. We talk about all these incredible outfielders in the system, and you always talk about Eduardo Quintero, rightfully so. Josue DePaula, rightfully so. Zaire Hope, maybe a Zach Earhart, certainly a James Tibbs III, Ryan Ward, who likely is going to make his major league debut this year, Mike Soroto. Those are the guys that you talk about first. You forget just how incredibly talented Jaron Elkins is, a young man who's from Madison, Tennessee, just about 20 miles north of Nashville. Led the California League in stolen bases. His batting average was fantastic. So he was very dynamic. His batting average is fantastic, and he hit a lot of home runs. So, he did a lot of different things. Can you kind of go over the statistical measures of just how good? Now, going to say it again, he struck out too much.
Yes.
But he came up big. He came up big, too, with this grand slam here, and he also hit a big 3-run home run to put the Quakes in the lead in August. That really flipped the scoreboard of a big game that helped them make the playoffs. And so he came up clutch as well. Talk about just how good Jaron Elkins was this year.
Yeah, so as you had mentioned, the swing and miss is part of his game right now. His strikeout percentage was 29.7%, which absolutely is high, and that is going to be something that he's going to be working on as he continues to go through it. But it still was a successful season for him. Triple slash line 264, 350, and 414 for Jaron Elkins. That's a 110 WRC plus in his first season at affiliate ball. But this is going to be the thing that stands out with Jaron Elkins is he not only is good at stealing bases, but he's extraordinarily efficient at stealing bases. He had 63 stolen bases last year. You know how many times he was caught? He was only caught 6 times last year. Mm-hmm. If you go by the measure of what's a little bit of a different statistical output of weighted stolen base, what essentially this measure is intended to do is be able to balance both the quantity of steals and the efficiency in which you steal them. Have 0 be league average, anything below that be below league average, anything above that be above league average. Jaron Elkins had a weighted stolen base value of 8.3. If you go across minor league baseball, that was third in minor league baseball of all minor league players in weighted stolen base, meaning you're talking about both quantity and efficiency of stealing bases. Jaron Elkins was among the best. That weighted stolen base was higher than Kendall George because Kendall George, while he did steal 100 bases, was caught a decent amount. Jaron Elkins was efficient at what he was able to do stealing bases. He absolutely has that component as part of his game. If he can improve a lot of the other parts that are part of his game, be able to hit for more consistently contact wise, maybe tap into some of the power a little bit more. Had 9 home runs last year or 150 ISO. If he can tap into some of these additional skill sets that he has, you're going to be talking about Jaron Elkins as being a really solid player. There's just a couple of areas that he has to work on to be able to get to that. But one area that he absolutely has that he will always be able to fall back onto is his speed and his ability to be able to get stolen bases, but get stolen bases efficiently.
Yep, Jaron Elkins, we mentioned in the interview today that one of his goals this offseason, they're working with his swing a little bit to give him a little bit of separation in his swing, meaning kind of creating that torque, which will make his movements a lot smoother and a lot easier to duplicate, which will mean he should be able to put the ball in play a little bit more than he did last year. So there's a couple of guys, again, Big Ski, Adam Sarabanowski. We're going to release the interview tomorrow. Jaron Elkins released the interview today. Please go check those interviews out and give them a look because it's always fun and it's a big honor to get to talk to these young men and kind of get you to bring you who they are and what they are and get you close and introduced to them. So, okay, the big news, I think, of today, Anthony Banda, I think still the Dodgers have to deal with the arbitration issue with him. There's one more, and I'll look it up here in a second. But the big news here, Brusdar Graterol, the Dodgers and Brusdar avoided arbitration. They signed Brusdar Graterol with, I believe it was what?
Yeah, $2.8 million. I think is what they said.
Yeah. So go ahead and talk about that, the statistical measures of Brusdar Graterol, and just kind of dive into how valuable is that contract for a guy that is as capable as Brusdar Graterol.
Yeah, so just talking a little bit about the arbitration process in general, there's 3 other players that the Dodgers within the next day have to settle on or go into some sort of arbitration type court to be able to negotiate what the contract is going to be. The players that they still have to settle on are Anthony Banda, Brock Stewart, and Alex Call. Brusdar Graterol will not be part of that process. The Dodgers and him settled on a $2.8 million contract. Essentially what this is, in case you aren't familiar with the baseball world, is when you make it up to the major leagues, you essentially have 6-ish years of team control that a team will have you for before you enter free agency. The first couple of years, you're at the major league minimum type of salary. The last several years of your deal, 3 or 4 years, you enter what's called an arbitration type process. And this is where you start gaining a little bit more money as you go along. Brusdar Graterol is going to be a free agent after this next year, which means he's entering into his last arbitration type year. And even though he hasn't pitched a whole lot, he's going to be making $2.8 million this upcoming year. Why is that? It is because when Brusdar Graterol is on the mound, I think we forget just how good he actually is. Let's look back at his 2023 season, his last full season at the major league level, because I think we totally forget this is the type of pitcher that has been completely missing from the Dodgers lineup. In 2023, 67 innings in third innings that Brusdar Graterol had, he posted a 1.2 ERA with a 64.5% ground ball percentage. Graterol, while he does have really good stuff, he's not going to get a whole lot of swings and misses, but he also isn't going to walk a whole lot of hitters. During his career that he's had, he's posted a 19.5% strikeout percentage, but only a 5% walk percentage. What he does elite is keeping the ball on the ground. When you keep the ball on the ground, that means the contact that teams and the damage that teams are going to be able to get off of you is going to be pretty limited. And Brusdar Graterol does that just about as well as anybody. Looking at his 2022 through 2023 seasons, just combining the last two more full seasons that he had, 117 innings pitched, a 2.08 ERA with a 2.79 expected ERA. He has and a 64% ground ball percentage. He is, when he is on the mound, among one of the more efficient pitchers out there. And especially with the Dodgers, they have a lot of guys that can get a lot of swing and miss. But if you're looking for somebody and you come up into a situation where you desperately need a ground ball, if Brusdar Graterol can stay healthy, he is the pitcher that you would turn to be able to get that ground ball. He is very, very good at that. And my hope is, while we did see him in the postseason in 2024, we really haven't seen him a whole lot. Did not see him at all last year. My hope is that Brusdar Graterol is at least able to have a relatively healthy 2026 season right before he is able to enter into free agency. He's played a crucial role on many Dodgers teams, and if he is healthy back in the mix, this is going to be a very good addition to the Los Angeles Dodgers and their bullpen, of a bullpen that struggled in the postseason last year. Well, they struggled in part because they did not have Brusdar Graterol.
How aggressive do you get with Anthony Banda? Kind of take us through. I know he struggled early. He was a little bit better late. You'll be able to break that down pretty good. How aggressive do you get with him, and what should the contract look like for him?
Okay, so what you have to know about the arbitration process is there's a little bit of back and forth that you have, and really what you want to do is you want to base it. Fangraphs does a really good job. There's some other systems. I don't know if they get this. They might get this from MLB trade rumors, or there's other different sites that estimate different arbitration totals. So essentially the team and the player and whoever is surrounding the player go a little bit back and forth on the different value of how much they think they should get paid, given their relative production, given what they're going to be able to produce this upcoming season. There typically is some sort of increase from the amount of money that they got the previous years. So looking back at the 2025 season, Anthony Banda weighed $1 million. Looking at his projection via Fangraphs this upcoming season is 1.7. I think that's right around the ballpark of what you're talking about. You're talking about a pretty decent upgrade or increase in pay for Anthony Banda. Something within that realm of neighborhood is what you're going to be looking for. And it is because past couple of seasons been really solid for Anthony Banda. 3.14 ERA past two seasons since he has been in a Dodgers uniform. That you will absolutely take that, and it is because with Banda, what you're looking for him is he is really good at getting left-handed hitters out as well. Banda, really good pitcher. You're going to be looking in probably just under $2 million type of range is what they're going to have. But if they do not come to an agreement tomorrow, that means it goes to some type of arbitration court. So the player will have their price that they're looking to fight for. The Dodgers will have their price, but typically the Dodgers avoid these types of arbitration hearings.
Yeah, is it worth $1 or $2 million to give off the? Here's the deal. This is the chess piece part of it. Is it worth the $1 or $2 million that maybe you might have to pay a little bit extra if you're the Dodgers to look like the team that's pinching pennies against your own players that have helped you in the past? That the reason why, one of the big reasons why all of the free agents want to come to the Dodgers is because they know financially, that developmentally, culturally, in every which way, the Dodgers take care of their players, period, in a discussion. They do not penny pinch with their players. So that $1 million, a lot of times, is not worth the perception to all of the other players you might want in the future that you're a penny pincher, although you might feel like you're overpaying at the time. So I think the Dodgers side on the air of caution there. So if it comes in at $1.7 million, what do the Dodgers do?
Well, if that comes up to the case with the Dodgers, I think they say, yeah, that's probably fair, and they give Anthony Banda $1.7 million.
If you're Anthony Banda, what do you ask?
I have no idea. It's difficult because he is entering into his second to last year in arbitration. I don't know if he's an ARB 4 type of player. ARB 4 just meaning he gets 4 years of arbitration. Yeah, he's in his third year of arbitration. If you're at maybe it's closer to $2 million, but it's within this relative range because you're comparing it to both arbitration year. You're comparing it to relative role, which is middle reliever for the Los Angeles Dodgers, but also somebody that's been pitching relatively well. For example, Anthony Banda during his third year of arbitration is going to make a lot less than what Tarek Skubal is going to make in his third year of arbitration, because Tarek Skubal provides a lot more value to his team with what he's been able to produce. But there's still a nice role that Anthony Banda is going to be able to provide, and I think that is relatively fair for a left-handed reliever that's part of the mix, that's not in the later stages of the game, but still has been really solid the past couple of years. I think they're going to settle on this. I'm not concerned at all.
Is Alex Call worth 1.5?
Yes.
That's the over-under, I think.
Yeah. The Alex Call, his is 1.5. He's entering in his first year of arbitration, so this is going to be his first time to be able to make more than what the league minimum is. And just Alex Call, just as an overall player, I mean, you look at his overall career stats; it's around a league average, 102 WRC plus. I know for the role that he is likely to have with the Los Angeles Dodgers, I think the best case scenario, if you're talking about Alex Call right now, is maybe a platoon versus left-handed pitching / if Tommy Edman is injured to start the season, maybe a little bit more of a pronounced role earlier in the season. But for the most part, and that's assuming that the Dodgers go out and get somebody like a Brandon Donovan or a Bo Bichette to be able to play some of the infield. But if you're talking about overall, I know we see Alex Call as being a little bit more of a backup outfielder, which he is, but with what he's able to provide, just situational type of thing, I think that's probably a little bit more accurate. But he still has been overall been a pretty solid big league hitter, nothing special. But he's able to draw a lot of walks. He doesn't have a extremely high strikeout percentage. He's able to do a lot of the little things to be able to help bridge the gap on this roster. So first payday that he's going to be, for serious payday at the major league level, relatively speaking, that he's going to be able to get. And I think that's absolutely going to be worth it.
So Brock Stewart's also eligible for arbitration. If he pitches to the capabilities like he pitched before he came to the Dodgers last year, what is he worth?
So last year, so we have to take ourselves back to the trade deadline last year. Why did the Dodgers go out and acquire Brock Stewart?
It's because
it wasn't just that he was hot. It was that he did a very specific thing incredibly well, and that was get right-handed hitters out. Last year against right-handed hitters, he faced 86 right-handed hitters. Against his weighted on base average was 184. His batting average against right-handed hitters was 130. He was dominant against right-handed hitters. That is the reason why they decided to go out and bring back Brock Stewart. Now, obviously, did not work out. He was not able to stay healthy. I'm trying to remember. I don't know exactly what his arbitration total was last year.
About $1.5 million, probably, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so Brock Stewart
1.3 to 1.5, somewhere in there.
Okay, so actually last year with Brock Stewart, with what he got
You're talking about last year. I'm talking about this year.
Yeah, what he got last year was
1.1 maybe?
It was a little bit lower than $1 million. It was $870,000. So
really?
So it's going to be, and this could just be something where you look at relievers, they get some sort of increase, especially if Brock Stewart overall in the season last year, 2.63 ERA, 2.66 expected ERA as well. Brock Stewart was a really good pitcher last year. Now, I think it's likely that he's going to miss some time at the start of the season. I have no idea when Brock Stewart is going to be back, but when he is back, he fills a very specific role in part of this Dodgers staff, and that's because
870,000, by the way.
870,000 what it was last year. Yes. and he's projected at about 1.4 this year. So we'll see if he ends up getting it or not. I assume that the Dodgers are going to be able to settle with him because they've settled with players that have dealt with injuries. They did this with players. I think they did this obviously with an Evan Phillips last year, be able to settle on some sort of arbitration type deal with him. They did it with Brusdar Graterol last year, obviously too. So they do this with these type of players, and even if the player is going to be out for a good chunk of the season, they're still going to get a pretty solid payday because they are in their arbitration years.
Kerry Brubaker's in the house. Went to a very early Loons game wearing my ice fishing stuff. Lowest attendance I witnessed. Yeah, Big Ski said that first game of the year in Great Lakes, it was like band day or something. Like the band came to the game. They did the national anthem and all that. And he said he thinks there were 12 people in the stands and they were all parents of the band members. And he felt so sorry for those kids because they were so cold. He said, we had heaters in the dugout. Thank God we did. He said, I just stood next to the heater the entire time. He didn't deny it. He's like me. It's like screw being cold, right? He said, but those poor kids, man, they couldn't get away from it. It was hilarious. Big Ski's a funny dude.
Oh, there's some other stuff that he said that were absolutely hilarious that we can talk about off air. Yeah, he's a really funny kid and really good pitcher as well. I'm assuming that's probably the first Tuesday that he showed up in Great Lakes, especially with Tuesday early in season with Great Lakes. It's not the highest attendance. I was able to see hit one of his actual starts. I think it was I can't remember. I think it was a Saturday that he ended up starting that week, which at least was during the day, which you had a little bit of sun during the more warm hours of the night. But that's what it is, state of Michigan.
Yeah. Okay, Freddie Peralta versus Roki Sasaki or Emmett Sheehan. Who's the best pitcher?
Okay, so if we are comparing
the Dodgers need to make decisions based on three-peating, in my opinion.
Okay, so
that's a different conversation to have. But let's make this conversation based on, first of all, how long is Freddie Peralta's contract right now? Do we know?
Freddie Peralta has one more year left, and then he's going to be a free agent.
So he's going to have to be significantly better than Emmett Sheehan or Roki Sasaki to make that make sense.
Yes, because I think the criteria that you laid out, if you were going just solely based off of the pitcher who you would have the most confidence in being the best going into next year, that probably would be Roki Sasaki, or that I wouldn't say Roki Sasaki, that probably be Freddie Peralta, but I think it would be a close conversation between both him and Emmett Sheehan because, I mean, throughout Freddie Peralta and his career, he's been really solid. Let's look at the past 3 seasons. I typically look at the past 3 seasons just because I think this is going to be the best stats to be able to look at. Looking at the past 3 seasons, Freddie Peralta, the Milwaukee Brewers, 3.40 ERA, 3.55 expected ERA. Really solid for what Freddie Peralta has been able to do. You look at his strikeout and walk percentage the past 3 seasons, about 29% and about 8.8%. Emmett Sheehan, throughout his major league career, has posted an ERA at 3.77, but last year was a 2.82. So the question is he more going to balance out to be a little bit more of the mid threes to type of ERA for Emmett Sheehan? Some of the early projections right now have him about a 3.88 ERA this upcoming season, which might be a little bit high from what it was last year, just trying to balance out all of the different aspects. Freddie Peralta, with his expected ERA, projections ERA, actually is at 3.91. So you can even say between Freddie Peralta and an Emmett Sheehan, it basically comes to a little bit more of a wash between the two. What Freddie Peralta would have going for him, obviously, a lot more experience on the mound, a lot more years that he's had to be able to pitch, and he's been basically a number one for the Milwaukee Brewers for several years. However,
how much does the number one pitcher cost you?
Okay, so this
per
is
year AAV. How much should a number one pitcher cost you?
Just on the open market, or
just how much would you be willing to pay for number one? How much do you think the average going rate should be for number one?
The average going rate for a number one type of pitcher, if they were just on the open market and they were get fair monetary value, you're talking about close to $30 million a year.
Okay, so more. At free agent, he's going to be in his year 30 year when he goes into free agency after this year. He's going to want about 5 years, about $100 million. He's going to want about $25 million a year. He is going to be, for what he has been, I think, very affordable. And he's of the right age to where if you wanted to sign him for another 5 years, then I think that's something that would make sense for the Dodgers. So I think the 1 year thing, how much is he making this year? Do we know? This next coming year?
I can be able to look this year. So they signed him to some sort of contract extension. So they did a little bit of something weird. They gave him one of these early year type of contract extensions. So Freddie Peralta is only going to be making $8 million this upcoming year.
Yeah. So if you add that into let's say you add that $8 million plus into the next 5. So basically you'd be getting Freddie Peralta for $108 million over the next 6 years, something in that range. I mean, that's just a ballpark range, right? That's pretty darn good for that guy. So the argument for Freddie Peralta is he's a legitimate number one. You know he can do it. You know he's not a number 5. You're going to plug him in as your 5th starter, and he's a number 1 starter. You're going to get him, I think, for probably below market value when you add in the $8 million this year. And then also, here's another thing, Austin. Here's another thing I think is in. I'm not saying the Dodgers should do it. I'm giving the case as to why they would. Here's another. You know who he pitches for?
Who's that?
The Milwaukee Brewers. And that is a team the Dodgers are likely going to have to go through. So while you're making yourself substantially better, you're also massively weakening one of the teams that you are going to have to go through to win a World Series. So there's a lot of things on here. It's not just as simple to say, well, it's either Tarek Skubal or bust. Freddie Peralta's not quite the superstar to justify not giving Emmett Sheehan or Roki Sasaki an opportunity. I'm not in that camp. I think there's a lot of ways that you can make Freddie Peralta make sense for the Dodgers, and with like the Tyler Glasnow deal, with the understanding that I think he's going to be not cheap enough, but affordable enough to re-sign after this 1 year. So I'm not looking at the 1 year. I'm looking at re-signing him as well. Now, obviously that hasn't happened yet, but I do think that's possible. And so I think there's a lot of reasons why somebody could make the case for Freddie Peralta.
Okay, so I think this is really and compelling type of conversation, because I think we have to take into account what type of pitcher that we think Freddie Peralta actually is as an overall player. So Freddie Peralta on the Los Angeles Dodgers, would he be what number starter do you think that he would be in comparison to some of the other starters that are on the team?
In the Dodgers?
On the Dodgers, yes.
He'd probably be the 5th starter.
He would probably be the 5th starter. Yes.
Yeah, but he's a number 1. You'd have 5 number 1 starters.
Yes. Yeah, so I think with Freddie Peralta, he would probably be the 5th starter. You could make an argument, him, Tyler Glasnow. He's more than just an innings eater, although he has been somebody that has been really good at being able to eat some innings the past couple of years. 165, 173, 176 the past 3 seasons. So 516 innings past 3 seasons. That is going to be something where the Dodgers would go ahead and appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And when we're talking about Freddie Peralta, we also have to take into account what he's going to be looking at after this upcoming year. And I think if you're talking about him just overall, I think he might be looking at the next free agent class. And if you're talking about him, I think it is something where he's probably going to be looking to have a really good season, enter free agency, and probably look for close to a $200 million type of deal.
You think so?
When we're looking at free agents that are on the market next year, we have Tarek Skubal that's going to be leading the class. He's absolutely going to be the top of the market. You also have a pitcher like Chris Sale, who you can sign to a shorter, really high annual value type of deal. But if you're looking for that next wave of pitchers that are going to be coming out, the guys that we're going to be talking about are Freddie Peralta. It might be a Brandon Woodruff if he has a really solid year. Jesus Luzardo is going to be part of that mix. He's going to be towards the top of that next wave if teams do not want to go ahead and pay a Tarek Skubal at the very top rate, which means that I think with Freddie Peralta, he's going to be looking at the free agent class next year and say, man, if you want somebody that can go ahead and be solid for several years and you don't want to pay the Tarek Skubal $400 to $500 million, however much it's going to pay to get Skubal, I think he's going to be that next wave of option during next year's free agency for teams that want to get somebody that's close to an ace, but don't want to spend Tarek Skubal type of money. And here's the other thing.
So is somebody going to pay $30 million a year for 10 years, for 7 or 8 years for Freddie Peralta? Is somebody going to do that?
I have no idea if somebody's going to do that, but if he pitches and has as good of a season, and you're talking about 4 years of mid to low 3s ERA, you're talking about somebody is going to pay a very heavy price for that. It's also going to be a little bit dependent, because I think he would be similar-ish to some of the categories of guys like a Framber Valdez or maybe even a Ranger Suarez. At the very least, he's at the very similar deals. Who both of those guys are free agents this year, and we're still waiting to see what their years and the total amount of money is going to be for both of them. I would say Freddie Peralta is probably in the little bit of a similar-ish category. Freddie Peralta is going to get a lot of money as a pitcher this upcoming cycle because I think he's going to be one of the guys that stands out just below
more than
that
$20 million a year.
Yes, I think more than $20 million a year.
Wow.
Pitchers are
at age 30. From age 30 to age, they sign him for 7-8 years. That's 30 to 37.
It's going to be 30. He's entering into his age 30 season this upcoming year. So it's going to be 31 to something. Pitchers are extremely expensive. I don't know if you've had the chance to be able to see even some of the trades, but even just trading for controllable starting pitchers, they are extremely expensive to be able to acquire, which means that even just trading for 1 year of Freddie Peralta for his age 30 season, I think is going to be extremely expensive to be able to get. Pitchers are very valuable in the game of baseball, and teams are just trying to get as much pitching as they possibly can because of the amount of injuries that are taking place, and they're looking for as much upside as they can. I think he's going to be somebody that's going to be very expensive. And then we get into the next aspect, and I think this is part of the reason why I want to go down the...
Dang you, Brew Baker, I tried.
I'm giving the full-out explanation as to why I want and giving the other side.
I had fun for a minute.
Yes, I let you give your conversation. I let you give your side. Here's why I went to it. Is because if you extended Freddie Peralta, you'd be extending him for his age 31 through however long season. Emmett Sheehan, this upcoming year, is going to be entering into his age 26 season, which means if we were talking about Freddie Peralta, he's probably going to be pretty steady, and then there's probably going to be some sort of decline that could coincide with some of the other pitchers that could potentially decline. Yeah. With Emmett Sheehan, you potentially, and I'm not saying that you will because there's not as long of a track record as Freddie Peralta has, but you potentially have somebody that's on the upswing with 4 years of control that you don't have to pay Emmett Sheehan $30 million a year. This upcoming year, you got to pay him the league minimum before he starts earning arbitration dollars, which I think is a little bit of a better situation. And you need some of those pitchers that are in the mix. And if it's relatively comparable, I think you just stick with what you have in house, especially if Emmett Sheehan can go ahead and perform in the postseason, which at least in certain roles that Emmett Sheehan had, I think if it went to the postseason and Emmett Sheehan had to start one of the games, I think the Dodgers would probably be fine.
Well, that you're going to have to give up a ton to get him right now. You'd probably have to give up a ton to give him at the trade deadline, even if he becomes a rental at that point. So I tried. That's the roundabout conversation there for Freddie Peralta. I don't think he's going to get 10 years, though. At age 31, I don't think anybody's going – he's going to get 6 or 7 years, I think.
I think that's anywhere between the 5 to 6, maybe 7 years.
I think it's going to be $25 million a year. To 25 to $27 million.
I think that would probably be right around the ballpark of what you could see potentially for
125, 130 million, somewhere in there, which I think the Dodgers could afford.
No,
and then here's what I'm trying to tell you, Austin. Yep. If you did that plus the $8 million this year, if you added the $8 million into that over a 6-year span, I mean, you're looking at about less than $20 million a year for a number one starter. That's a pretty darn good. You just said they're worth $30 million. That's a pretty darn good deal. That's what I'm saying. If you actually add the math up with this year.
But the question is, how much longer is Freddie Peralta going to be a number one type of starter? That's going to be the question.
Well, nobody ever knows that. I mean, he could be Max Scherzer, and it could be another 10 years.
Yep. And if we're talking about Freddie Peralta's type of contract, I think dollar-wise of what you're going to be looking at, I think you're probably going to be looking more in the 160 to 180 type of range as far as financial commitment to be able to extend a Freddie Peralta. That's the financial commitment, at least very loose estimates, kind of what I'm seeing, as opposed to the 125 to 130 type of range. Okay. I think it's going to cost an additional $40 to $50 million at least to be able to extend him.
We'll see if a 31-year-old gets that.
We'll see it. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll have to go back and look at this. We'll see which one of us is right.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be you. I'm just trying to play any kind of scenario where it would make sense for the Dodgers to go get him. I think at this point, the answer, I think probably 100% of Dodgers fans would say no to that. I think Dodgers fans are smart enough and have a level head enough on their shoulders to say, you know what? If you're talking about, of course, this year at $8 million, Freddie Peralta versus Emmett Sheehan this year, it's probably fairly comparable as far as what you're going to get versus what you're paying. It's not this year. It's It's the fact that you have control over Emmett Sheehan for the years moving forward, and River Ryan and Kyle Hurt and Gavin Stone and all these guys. That's the argument against Freddie Peralta, is that not necessarily this year, but the years after, you're going to continue to get value with these guys, especially if you do pitch them this year, whereas you're going to get a bigger payday with Freddie Peralta. So it's a fun conversation to have. I do think, though, I think it's a little bit more legit than maybe Dodgers fans are giving it credit for. I think it may be even a little bit more legit than somebody like you who's crunching it down might even think it might make sense for with the Dodgers, because I can tell you this, and I know this from being in the coaching ranks and being in the playing ranks and doing all this and being, just around sports my whole life. When you have a chance to win a championship, it always feels, you always hear, oh, well, we'll be back. Well, we'll be back. Well, we have. No, you don't do. Whenever you are there, that's why it's such a big deal that Will Smith's cleat was on the plate. That's why it's such a big deal that Miguel Rojas did hit the home run. It's why it's such a big deal that Ryan Brazier did give you the start against the San Diego Padres. Dave Roberts will tell you that's, and Andrew Friedman, when you actually have the chance, even if you are the best team, even if you do have Shohei Ohtani for another 6 or 7, 8 years, when you have a chance to win a championship, you have to do everything you can to win that one, because you never know when that chance is going to make its way back around. So if you have a chance to get Freddie Peralta and it makes any kind of sense whatsoever, I can tell you that's going to be a door that Dave Roberts, Andrew Friedman, Billy Gasparino, Brandon Gomes, it's going to be hard for them to say no to, because they know the iron is hot. You never know when that iron's going to go cold. You never know when a guy's going to have a career in it. You just don't know what's going to happen in the future. And if you feel like he can help you next year without massively or even minorly affecting your ability to win in the future, that's something that will get consideration. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely right. And I think it's going to really be dependent on what the price is going to be for Freddie Peralta. Now, I'm not, if it was something where, man, Milwaukee was really interested in maybe not necessarily a Emmett Sheehan or even a River Ryan, just because I think River Ryan's going to play a very crucial role on this team. But even if they were interested in some of the other arms that the Dodgers had as part of the mix, and it made sense where the Dodgers could go ahead and do it. For example, I'm thinking about guys like Ben Kasparius and Kyle Hurt. If they saw them as starters and they had years of control with them, paired with another piece or so, you could absolutely make sense to where you can add Freddie Peralta as part of the mix. It's going to probably cost a lot more than that in what it's going to be able to cost. But the reason why I want to bring this up is because I don't know what my confidence level in Roki Sasaki as a starter is. I'm assuming he is going to be the 6th starter for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I'm assuming the Dodgers are going to give him every single shot to be able to stick at the major league level as a starter. But even with looking back at his postseason numbers that he had last season, I was more underwhelmed than what I thought I was going to be. He performed incredibly well, 0.84 ERA, but it was how he went out and got it that was concerning, because it might show some consistent trends that we are seeing with Roki Sasaki as a player that I want to see reversed going forward. And the reason why is I look at his postseason strikeout percentage. And when I remember back to Roki Sasaki, he was amazing during the postseason. But his strikeout percentage in the postseason was worse than what his regular season strikeout percentage was. It was only 14% in the postseason with a close to 12% walk percentage. If you have a 14% strikeout percentage and a close to 12% walk percentage, you're not going to have success at the major league level. That will come back.
There's a lot of uncertainties to Sasaki, no doubt.
There's a lot of uncertainties to Sasaki. That being said, I still think they want to give him the time to be able to develop at the major league level.
Oh, no doubt.
To try to turn into that.
They promised him that.
I think they absolutely promised him that. And if you add somebody like Freddie Peralta into the mix, it would add amazing assurance to this rotation, but it would really crowd the picture into where you're talking about Freddie Peralta has to be on the major league roster. And then it's one of Emmett Sheehan or Roki Sasaki, if everybody is healthy, that has to be out of the rotation. And then it's a Do we strategically provide rest for some of the main starters? Do we add as much insurance as we can for playoff quality starters and be able to add them to the mix? But how would you be able to develop Roki Sasaki as a major league starter? That's a big question mark, but he's going to be one of the guys that you have to watch out for going forward, because I still have a lot of question marks, even though we saw him have some success in October last year.
I don't know how you couldn't. We have a $9.99 super chat from Matt Kramer. Thank you so much. Try what we have unless we find an outfield short-term option. Peralta is not a solution long-term. In fact, I think it corners us. We can move at the trade deadline after we evaluate Wardo. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think most Dodgers fans are going to be in the camp, hey, we already have Emmett Sheehan, we have Kyle Hurt, we have River Ryan. And I think a lot of people are excited about River Ryan. We have Gavin Stone. We have Roki Sasaki. Why do all this? Why give up all these prospects? Why go get a guy like that when he's really going to be your fifth starter, right? So I think most Dodgers fans are in that category there. So the Dodgers are in a good spot because they do have Ryan Ward. This is a guy that hasn't proven it at all, hasn't been in the major leagues yet, but they do have him as insurance. You've got Alex Call, who can play a specific role. You've got, if you re-sign Kike, you've got guys that can play both infield and both outfield. So it's a good position to be in if you're Dodgers. This is why we said this about a month ago. We said whenever the Dodgers went and got Edwin Diaz, it's liable to be very quiet for a long time. And here's why it's going to be quiet, because the Dodgers are going to pursue, but they're only going to pursue in a way to where they're just going to be point blank, hey, this next deal is going to have to be one that really benefits us. We're not going to go out and just make this hurt because it's a want and it's not a need. Because I truly believe the Dodgers are totally content if Bo Bichette or Kyle Tucker, neither one of them come into the terms that they're willing to sacrifice to get either one of them. They're just going to do this, and they're going to move on and say, boys, we got what we got. We're still the best roster in baseball. Let's go win. So that's why it's been quiet, is because the Dodgers are negotiating on a want basis and not a need basis. I say that all the time, but I truly believe that.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely right. They are in a strike at what's going to be a potentially really good opportunistic type of deal. And we've talked a ton about Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker. I think they're kind of waiting to see of if Toronto gives a long-term deal to one of those two players. And if they give a long-term deal to one of those two players, that really crowds out the market that some of the other players are going to be looking at, to where it becomes a real question if one of those players are going to get a long-term deal from somewhere else. I think maybe if you had to guess Toronto as the most likely place to be able to give Kyle Tucker a long-term deal, what are the options for Bo Bichette that they're going to give him a more than 5-6 year type of deal? And would it be appealing for Bo Bichette to take a short-term deal, re-enter free agency in his age 29 or 30 season, be able to make a lot of value on a short-term deal, and be able to go out there? Those are going to be question marks to be able to ask. It depends on how much you want to bet on yourself. And it's the exact same thing with Kyle Tucker. Is he going to get a long-term type of deal, or is he going to have to settle for a shorter-term deal? If he has to settle to a shorter-term type of deal, that is going to be the most ideal scenario for the Los Angeles Dodgers, is to sign Kyle Tucker to a short-term type of deal. He is by far the best free agent that is available. He is better baseball player, just statistically, than what Bo Bichette has, and I think fits onto the roster a little bit better than what Bo Bichette is able to do, at least in the short-term type of scenario. If that works out, great. If neither of those scenarios work out, which they're kind of waiting to see if something is going to fall within the terms that they have, perhaps they look back into some of the trade options. If those don't work out, you mentioned a platoon potentially with Alex Call and Ryan Ward. While I know Dodgers fans would not necessarily be excited about that, Alex Call, more than serviceable past 3 years.
So what do you think from a statistician perspective? What would you get out of your left field if you had an everyday platoon of Alex Call and Ryan Ward? What would that platoon provide you? That's
exactly what I was going to go out. So if you're talking about Alex Call, the past 3 seasons against left-handed pitching, it's been about a 114 WRC plus. Let's just say that's about a 110 WRC plus against left-handed pitching with an Alex Call. Ryan Ward is going to be the question mark. What you can point to at the AAA level, which AAA stats and Major League stats are not necessarily comparable. That makes it very difficult to be able to compare. But he did have a plus 1,000, 1.038 OPS against right-handed pitching last year. That is really solid for Ryan Ward. And if you have him in a role where he basically just plays against right-handed pitching and puts him in that type of role, the best opportunity for him to be able to succeed, you're talking about a scenario where, man, even if there's some struggles that are part of the mix, I think you could somewhere within the neighborhood maybe think of even close to like a 90 WRC plus. And then things even out to be a little bit more of the 95 to 100 WRC plus type of basis. And that is like the median type of scenario.
Overall between the two, a 90 to 95?
Overall between the two, because Ryan Ward in that scenario, because more right-handed pitching would play more than what Alex Call would play, because there's more righties than lefties.
Not good enough because the Dodgers offense was a problem last year. Now, I feel like if the Dodgers offense would have hummed along and hadn't been anywhere from inconsistent to bad from the end of May all the way through the World Series, I think if the Dodgers, the offense would have been in high gear and played well all year, not showed a lower floor than I think we all expected, I think then maybe you could insert that platoon. But I think the Dodgers left last year feeling like they had to upgrade their offense. And as much as I love Wardo, there is no case that anybody could possibly make that Alex Call, Ryan Ward platoon is going to upgrade this offense the way that it needs to be upgraded to make it look like it didn't at the end of last year or any part really consistently from the end of May on.
Yeah, I think what it would be, if you're talking about upgrade, if you're talking about a very comparable to Michael Conforto, you're talking about a bar where it's a 75 to 80 WRC plus. That in and of itself, if you just compare the two and keep everybody else stable and consistent, would be a slight upgrade, in which could be the argument that you make. But I think it would be relatively stable as an offensive unit going into this next year without any significant upgrades and with a roster that is starting to get an additional year older. So when you're talking about the overall production wise of the roster, because I think the offense is as old as it is, I think you could see probably a stagnant step, probably in the exact same direction of what the offense was, which if you have the exact same pitching that you had last year, really solid pitching.
Yeah, but look what it took to win.
It took a lot.
It took about 3 miracles to win.
It took a lot to be able to win last year, but that was also with the Dodgers offense underperforming what it should have done, and arguably the Blue Jays offense overperforming what they normally are during the course of the season. They had much more power than what they hit during the course of the regular season. So there is a very specific type of scenario that played out last year. Not saying that the Dodgers should do Alex Call, Ryan Ward. I've talked very consistently throughout the course of the offseason about them acquiring and needing to acquire a bat. But if this is the option that ends up being the case for the Los Angeles Dodgers, I think they're going to be relatively fine. And even if you mentioned end of May through the end of last year, including the postseason, I'll just talk through the regular season stats, June 1st through the end of the regular season. It still was 105 WRC plus for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Not good enough, needs to be better, was 113 overall, but still a above league average type of offense, even though we saw some inconsistencies.
You got Ohtani in it, the greatest player in baseball, of course.
Yes, yep.
Take him out of it, and what is it?
I have no idea what it is without it.
I mean, what was his WRC plus?
It was 170 something throughout the course of the season.
So you're talking about one guy. You take one guy out of that, you're probably below league average or close.
It's probably close to league average. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's kind of what I'm saying. So, what if of course you can play the what ifs for whatever. So kind of what I'm saying is this is a weird conundrum. I don't think Ryan Ward and Alex Call is going to be the platoon in left field for the Dodgers on a team that's trying to three-peat with Shohei Ohtani, and you just get Edwin Diaz. I don't think the counter move to going to get Edwin Diaz and signing Shohei Ohtani a couple of years ago, getting Yoshinobu and all these free agents, I don't think the counter move is to sit on your hands and to play Ryan Ward and Alex Call as your everyday platoon in left field. But at the same time, I really don't think the Dodgers are going to go out and sign a contract that is an overpay for either Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette. I don't think they're going to pay a contract at the terms of a need versus the terms of a want. So it's kind of a weird deal. I don't think this is going to be your outfield, but then I also don't think they're going to overpay. So I don't know where this thing is headed. That's kind of the interesting part of that.
All right, so we won't spend a whole lot of time because we talked a ton about Bichette and Tucker, but let's ask a fun question. Where is your limit, and where do you think the Dodgers' limits are as far as years-wise for Bichette and Tucker?
5, and I think 6 o'clock at 6. At 6, they sit down in the war room and they figure it out. I think they would do 6, but it would have to be very creative in terms of like the last year of it. Actually doesn't cost the Dodgers a whole lot, and Casey has started to not perform over the last 2 years to where the annual value of the contract actually isn't worth a whole lot the last couple of years to kind of hedge against if there is some regression to it. So I think 5 without being creative. I think the Dodgers might go 6 if the contract gets creative towards the back end of it.
Okay, where would you go? How long would you push it for both of those players?
What I just said.
That's where you would push it, and that's where you think the Dodgers are going to push it.
I'd pay whatever he wants for 5 years. Hey, Tucker, if you'll come here for 5 years, tell us how much you want.
Yeah.
That's what I would say to him.
Okay, so with me, for Bichette.
Now, he's going to say $700 million a year, which we know that. Yeah. He's going to understand what we mean by that, but that's what I say to him. I say, Tucker, at 6 years, we're going to get creative with you. Anything beyond that, good luck wherever you go. I wish you luck.
Okay. All right. So
we're going to go and win our 3rd championship, with or without you. We love you, but have a. Actually, I wouldn't say that because I don't even know the guy. But that would be my comment to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this would be a little bit of my. So I think that obviously the Dodgers are looking for very much short term, be able to be opportunistic about that. I don't know what the stretch would be able to be for each one of those guys.
Now you got to put your neck out there. I just gave you specific terms.
I was just about to get into that. So with Bo Bichette, obviously I've been somebody that's been more down on Bo Bichette than a lot of other people's. If you're talking about me, I would give him 3, and I might stretch it at most to 5. That would be the most.
Will he take 3?
3, unless it's really high average annual value and his market's kind of craters, probably not.
Golly, I wouldn't. If I were him, I wouldn't even consider that.
No.
Now, when is Bo Bichette ever going to be more valuable than right now?
Unless he has a really good season and proves that he is entering into his age 28 season, I believe.
28. Yeah, he's a little younger than I thought he was. I thought he was 29. Okay.
Kyle Tucker is 29. And if we're talking about Kyle Tucker, where I would love to be able to go with him, obviously is the shorter, the better. But if we're talking about years, I would start as short as you possibly could, maybe 4 to 5. But I might stretch that up to maybe 7 years. 7 years, I could talk myself into giving Kyle Tucker 7 years, just because I go back to that conversation that we had earlier with comparing his numbers to guys like a Freddie Freeman. And if you're willing to give Freddie Freeman 6 years at age 32 with relatively comparable statistics.
No, don't compare Kyle Tucker and Freddie Freeman. You and I are going to fight on that one.
Dude, their numbers are really close.
Man, I can't.
I get it. The leadership,
just the defense a lot. You know how many throws that Mookie's thrown in the dirt? Well, just look at the games of the playoffs that Freddie Freeman has won by fielding a ball in the dirt. We have hold on one second. We have a super chat from. I can't read Korean, so I can't say the name here, and I don't know how much money that is, so I can't say it. I know it says 5,000, but it's in Korean, so I apologize for that. Yep. Korea Major League Baseball fans called Dodgers the undisputed number 1, so we need younger and younger. This is the only problem, the oldest team in the league. Thank you so much for, first of all, your participation on Dodgers Daily. Dodgers Dawgs is part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Welcome in. Thank you so much for watching. We are so glad to have you here. And thank you so much for that super chat. That is absolutely awesome. Okay, there you go, Austin.
Yep. Yeah, no, thank you very much for the super chat. The only point that I was trying to make is not the overall aspect. I'm just talking about the offensive side of the game of baseball. If you compare their offensive statistics from the game, and if you're talking about giving Freddie Freeman a 6-year contract at age 32 season, would I be willing to stretch from 6 years to 7 years for Kyle Tucker from his age 29 to his age 35 season?
Nope. He's too one-sided.
Okay, so then you just be giving up 6 to 7 years with the game of baseball that he has. You're gonna just toss it up and
he's
say
not a good defender, is he?
He won
Freddie
a Gold
Freeman
Glove.
was the full package. We knew the culture of Freddie. He's an incredible human being. He's from
Yes,
Southern California. He's just as good defensively as he is. Probably he's impacted the defensive side just as much as the offense. As stupid as that sounds, that's probably a true statement. Freddie Freeman is the complete package.
Yeah, so
not just a hitter.
Defensively, over the past couple of seasons, you can disagree with that. The defensive stats by defensive runs saved has him at a little bit below league average defensively as a first baseman.
Talk about Freddie.
Outside of average fielding run value, as past couple of seasons have been right around to slightly above league average as Freddie Freeman as a player. Freddie Freeman has graded out slightly below league average as a defender at the first base position the past couple of seasons, which you could make the statement he has been injured. I think that's absolutely part of the equation. But if we're talking about the opportunity to be able to add somebody to the mix who is a 140 WRC plus type of player, and you're going to get 140 WRC plus play type of production for 3 to 4 seasons, and maybe 120 WRC plus to 110 WRC plus the past couple of seasons. If you're talking about tacking on the extra year to be able to go out and win a World Series in this upcoming year, all I'm talking about with this is not comparing the overall package to Kyle Tucker and Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman is absolutely phenomenal and has added so much to the mix. But if you're talking about a bat, that in and of itself, the bat has been comparable statistically to what Freddie Freeman has been able to provide, and adding another bat like that into the mix, which Kyle Tucker, as we talked about on the show a couple days ago, if you look at the past 5 seasons, has been a top 10 hitter in the game of baseball by WRC plus with a 143 WRC plus. If you're talking about 1 year between 6 and 7 years, which is in the middle range type of deal, to be able to add him to the mix, I'm not saying I would start there, but if you had to push me to that type of level, I could talk myself into doing that, because you're talking about entering into his age 35 season. Obviously not ideal for the Dodgers, but if you want to go all in to be able to win to World Series, he is by far the best option to be able to add to the mix.
So what position does Freddie Freeman play?
First base.
Okay, how old is he?
Freddie Freeman is entering in his age 36 season, I believe.
He's already getting injured, and he plays first base, which is a substantially less grueling position than left field, right? And also, here's kind of my counterpoint to your defensive argument there.
Yep.
So when the Dodgers signed Freddie Freeman, he was an elite first baseman, correct?
He was. That's actually a really good question. I'll look at some of the numbers while you continue on.
Last year with the Braves, the last 2 years with the Braves, what kind of defensive player was he?
Looking at the last 2 years with the Braves, he had defensive run saves was round league average to slightly above league average as a defender by defensive run saves, outs above average fielding run value. Around 1 to 3 is the value that you're getting right there. His best seasons, 2016, 2018, he was really good defensively. 2016, 7 defensive run saves, 13 and 11 outs above average and fielding run value. 9 defense run saves in 2018. So definitely early in his career, he was really, really solid defensively towards the 16 to 18 type of years, taking a little bit of a step back as he's gotten older.
Of course, which you can't compare a 28-year-old Kyle Tucker to a 36-year-old Freddie Freeman. You got to compare what's Kyle Tucker going to be when he's 36, and he starts slowing down, gets injured, and that kind of deal. So if at 28, Kyle Tucker, is he a below average defender right now?
Defensively, he's probably slightly below league average.
At 28 years old. So what's he going to be at 33 and 34?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. What he's going to be defensively.
That's my concern with going 7. Do you see where I'm going here?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not to say you're wrong, not to say I'm wrong or right, or there's no right or. This is all gambling. It's gambling. Whatever you do.
It's in part a very good reason why I'm concerned about Bo Bichette, because he has shown to be a negative defender, and I just don't have the evidence that he's going to be a solid defender at second base or third base. Why would I make that investment in a player that, man, if they're not going to be good defensively, they have to be able to hit to be able to provide value. Kyle Tucker, in order to be able to provide value, very likely has to be a very good hitter. I just think with the numbers that he showed up, he's been one of the more safe bets to be a solid bat going forward, and there's not as many holes I see in his game going forward, or not as much that he's going to have to rely upon this one individual thing in order to succeed going forward. I think there's a little bit more variance in well-roundedness in the bat to where I think that can still provide value to a team.
So here's an interesting conversation, and I think a lot of people are going to differ from me, but I see it every day with the Dodgers, okay? What's harder to get back, years on a contract or prospects that you give up?
I mean, years you don't want to go ahead and
You can't ever
give up.
get those years back. If you give a guy a 10-year contract, you're stuck with that, correct?
Yeah, unless you release them and just
if you give up
bite the bullet,
prospects, you can go make a trade and get those prospects back as soon as you make a trade. For instance, okay, Hunter Fiducia, okay? That's how we got Paul Gervais and Adam Sierwanowski, two guys that both might make their major league debut next year. Now, not debut. Paul Gervais has already made it both with the Rays and the Dodgers. But there is a chance, and I even mentioned this scenario with Sierwanowski, and he didn't downplay it. He just said, I really don't think about it. He's going to be Rule 5 eligible next winter. The Dodgers are likely going to, they're going to have to put him on the 40-man then. They're not going to just, even if he has a bad year. So they're likely going to put him on the 40-man possibly like in August, right? They might give him a 26-man roster spot for a cup of coffee. They've done that with Alex Freeland and Edgardo Henriquez just to see if he might get help, be just kind of a quirky lefty in terms of his windup, okay? So they got two really good pitchers, one left-handed, one right-handed, for Hunter Fiducia, right?
Yep.
Okay, they didn't draft Zaire Hope. They didn't draft Jackson Ferris. They didn't draft Mike Sirota. They didn't draft a lot of these guys. The Dodgers are better in pro scouting. The Dodgers are better in development. You know, like who was it? Yency Almonte, for instance. The Dodgers, immediately when he got from here to the Dodgers from the Rockies, the Dodgers said, hey, here's your spin metrics. Here's all your induced break on your pitches. We're going to change your grip, and we're going to move you to a two-seam. Bam. And then they changed him more to kind of a sweeper shape on his slider, and it was like, wow. And I mean, Yency, whenever I interviewed him, you can go back to the interview, he was like, yeah, it was like Eureka from the first time we met. How about Evan Phillips? How about Chris Martin? How about Ryan Brazier? How about Ryan Yarbrough? How about Andrew Heaney? The Dodgers, how about Brent Honeywell? Okay, so to me, the prospects are easy to say, hey, who do we have coming up? Because you can't get out of that. So I'm always in favor of the trade route. And then when you make that statement, because the Dodgers have done all this great work, trading to replenish their farm system, trading to get the quad A guys. How about Will Klein? Did you enjoy him last year? Pretty damn good, right? Okay, they're so good in that part of it. And then also part of it's personal for me, because then a guy like Michael Busch, who I hated to watch play in Oklahoma City, a guy like Hunter Fiducia, a guy like Gavin Lux, to an extent, is going to get a cleaner shot because he's not going to have the pressure of the Dodgers. But then also it's a win-win because then they get the best opportunity too. So I'm a little bit different than probably everybody on that. I would rather give up the prospects, the quad A guys, than I would give up the years that free agency requires you to do.
So then this brings up a really fascinating question for you. Who do you give long-term contracts to?
Only superstars. And here's my differing with you.
Yep.
Superstars are complete. Okay. Mm-hmm. They're complete in culture. They're complete in work ethic. They're complete in leadership skills. They're complete offensively. They're complete defensively. They are guys that let me give you a perfect case scenario.
Yeah.
They're guys that even if they don't produce like a superstar, they still give you a superstar caliber effort on the team. The guys that I would point to from last year would be Mookie Betts. He was well below his offensive output that he would expect from himself. He still was a superstar to me. Freddie Freeman, many different times last year, was not Freddie Freeman. He was still a superstar to me. So the way that, as a coach, that I identify a superstar is not to say a guy can hit 360. The way that I identify a superstar is a guy to say that when he's not hitting 360, can he still be a superstar? That's the only guy that I give the long-term contracts to. I have a lot of questions about Kyle Tucker as to if he's not hitting, which hitting is the hardest thing to do in all of sports, especially as you get older. If he's not hitting, what the hell is he giving your team at that point?
Yep, and it's a fair enough question. The good thing about Kyle Tucker, and the reason why, if the Dodgers were able to give him a decent sized contract, would be because he has a long track record of being able to hit, to where you would obviously have the Dodgers have to answer that question. That has to be part of the question that they answer, because he has to be a good fit in the clubhouse. That absolutely is towards the top, if not the very top of the list. But then you also have to look at the talents that he's able to have, and there's a long track record, a little bit of a longer deal than maybe just the short couple of year deal, which we're all in favor of, giving him a 1 to 2, maybe 3 year type of deal. Everyone is in favor, I would assume, with that type of contract, but extending it out a little bit more, obviously you'd be looking for a little bit more of those intangibles. And I think that is totally fair. And that provides a little bit of a different aspect of roster flexibility to your team. And the Dodgers have shown and had a really good history of being able to maneuver their roster. And what you don't want for this team, we've talked a lot about it during the course of this offseason, is box yourself into certain scenarios. And one of the ways to be able to do that is be incredibly selective of who you give long-term contracts to. The Dodgers have been fortunate because the long-term contracts they've given out have been to really good players. They've been to mostly Hall of Fame.
It's been to superstars.
They've been to superstars. That's exactly right. So for each one of these guys that we talked about, Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker, to what level of superstar
are they superstars? I don't see either one of them as a superstar because they're not complete enough for me. Bo Bichette's not a complete enough player for me to consider a superstar. Great player, yes, not a superstar.
Yep, and I think that is totally fair enough. I think Kyle Tucker's bat is getting close to that level. The other aspects of the game, I think it's totally fair to be able to have question marks about him, and that's where you have to trust the Dodgers to be able to do their due diligence in evaluating players, evaluating talent, and then go from there.
Absolutely. That's kind of where I'm at. So, I think you've made some great points here. I think I've made some points that actually make sense. I've probably been on the unpopular side of both the Freddie Peralta and the Kyle Tucker. I like to be the contrarian every now and then. I like to kind of play the other side and say, hey, well, here's the reasons why this could be the case. I'm not close to it. I still haven't made my mind up. And so that back and forth that we're still having, we mentioned there's no right or wrong. That's why there's been no decision made, because that's exactly what's happening with the Dodgers right now. They're having these exact same conversations. It's like, damn, that dude can hit, man.
Mm-hmm.
We need somebody to hit in the outfield right now.
Yeah.
But, man, what if he doesn't hit and we're stuck with a crappy-ass left fielder who we're not exactly sure what everything else is. And then all this, he's 32 years old, and all of a sudden he's hitting 240, and his OPS is, or his WRC plus is like 106. What now?
Yeah.
Those are all the things that are going on right now. This is why this is so complicated, and it's just not as easy to say, just go get that guy, right? Just go do that. It's a fascinating conversation.
You have to think about things both short-term and long-term because, well, the short-term is obviously the thing that you have to prioritize. You also have to walk through the consequences of your decisions long-term, and you can't be completely reckless with all of your decisions. Yep. Again, you have to make 2026 your priority, but not your sole priority.
Agreed. And as Hepatitis, see you later. Hey, Hep, you need to show up in our chats more often. We miss you over here, man. Come on back to we're not as consistent as a lot of other play because this is like our fourth job. And so we do it whenever we, A, have time, and B, if we have time and are feeling like doing it, that's when we go on. So I get it. We're not consistent, but Hep, come back over. We've been missing you, no doubt about it. Yeah. Good thing for us that it seems like Tucker or Bichette will take a short-term deal. Slam dunk. If either one of those two will take a short-term deal, again, like I said, I tell Kyle Tucker, Kyle, we're going to give you 5 years. You name your price in AAV. Let's go. That's what I would tell Kyle Tucker. Now, I don't even consider that a short-term deal. I consider that a mid-term deal. I'd pay him whatever he wants for 5 years. Obviously, that's relative. I'm being kind of facetious there, but that's my statement to him.
Yeah, if he takes 5 year type of deal, I think they would be absolutely ecstatic at that. If he takes a 2 or 3 year type of deal, they would be jumping up and down for that. That would be unbelievable because that would give him a chance to be able to potentially re-enter in free agency. But that would be an unbelievable deal from the start of the offseason. At the start of the offseason, we kind of wrote off Kyle Tucker because we anticipated him to get more of a 9 to 10, 11 year type of deal because of the talent that he has. But if he's able to take a little bit more of a shorter term, that is very good news for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And we'll see what happens. One of the fascinating questions that I've kind of wrestled with a little bit, if they got one of these types of players, let's say it's a Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette type of player, is the bottom of the lineup going to deal with some of the same inconsistencies that we have been mentioning about? So just bringing up to kind of some of the players that we would be talking about towards the bottom of the lineup, I think it is very likely, let's just say that Kyle Tucker is part of the mix. And let's say that this is what your lineup looks like if you're talking about against right-handed pitching. It would probably be something in the similar. You can take this order with a grain of salt. Ohtani, Betts, Tucker, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, but the bottom three in the order, very likely, or there's a good chance, would be a Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, and Tommy Edman. Do you still need somebody that is going to be able to hit for some solid on base percentage? And in this conversation, is it still part of the equation where, man, we could really use somebody like a Brendan Donovan who can get on base at a 344 clip and be really solid at that? Because if we're talking about,
yeah, see, I like that profile better than Tommy Edman in the 9-hole in front of Shohei Ohtani. I'd rather have a guy that accents getting on base versus hitting home runs.
Because if we're talking about a Bo Bichette or a Kyle Tucker, it's very likely that they're going to be in the top 6 of the order.
What I'm saying is, what is Tommy Edman's on base percentage? Is he above average at getting on base?
No, he would probably be.
That's what I'm saying. Is a guy that actually gets on base.
But here's the issue. I don't think Teoscar Hernandez or Andy Pages are good 9-hole hitters as well. So the question is, who would be somebody that can get on base to be able to provide some more on base percentage? What you'd be doing with Kyle Tucker is you'd be getting a lot of thump to be able to add to your lineup to where, man, you score enough runs to where you don't even necessarily need to worry about it because he's the best hitter to be able to part of the mix. But if you're talking about turning the lineup order over to the bottom of the order, Kyle Tucker would be able to provide a lot of good consistency to turn it over towards the middle of the order, but to be able to turn it over towards the top of the order, I think some of the guys you could still have question marks with the bottom of the order being more of a Teo, Pages, and Edman, to where you can
you know what I would say to that? You know what I've been saying? I would say Ha-Seong Kim, let it cook.
Okay, so the question
let's get this kid the major league at bat so he can make the adjustments, and let's just freaking find out. Let's not wait. Let's find out.
So would you trust him to be able to get on base enough at the bottom of the lineup to where he would be able to provide enough consistent on base support for Ohtani to where you could take advantage? Or is the investment in plate appearances for Ha-Seong Kim worth it to where you're not even worried about that as much?
I'm not worried about the results at this moment. I'm worried about the process of it. So here's what I'm trying to tell you. It's going to take a certain amount of major league at bats for Ha-Seong Kim to become Ha-Seong Kim. Okay. Yep. Are you following what I'm saying? So why not? Let's get them all right now. When you already, if you go get Kyle Tucker and you have this incredibly unbelievable lineup, why not do that now? Why not get those at bats out of the way right now when you have the rest of the lineup that is so good that basically whatever you get from him is a bonus. I'm not saying you put in Ha-Seong Kim because he's already developed and he's necessarily the best offensive player to put out there right now. I'm saying he has the highest potential, and while you have the lineup that can cover that, you can get him the 800-900 major league at bats to where maybe by not next year, but 300-400 at bats, and by the time you're rolling into the playoffs next year, maybe he is that guy. I'm not saying he is right now. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is he never will be until you actually get him that certain amount of major league at bats. Why would you stretch that out over 2 or 3 years? Let's just peel that off right now and go get it.
Yep, and I think that's a totally fair argument. You can make the exact same argument. We've gone back and forth about Ha-Seong Kim, Alex Freeland. You can make that exact same argument, especially if you want Tommy Edman to be more of that guy that's more of the plug-and-play / hit against left-handed pitching, that I think Tommy Edman could fill in that role really well. Instead of Tommy Edman in that lineup with Ohtani, Betts, Tucker, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, Teo, Andy, you could insert a Ha-Seong Kim, or you could insert an Alex Freeland and be like, this is our investment into some of the youth in the lineup.
Investment's a good way to put it. Yes, exactly.
Even though I don't think based on what they put last year, there's probably going to be a lot of swing and miss. There's going to be a lot of swing and miss at the bottom of the lineup if that is the case. But I think it could be, you could make the argument that it is worthwhile the investment because that is a good platoon matchup for both of them to be able to go out and have some success. And it's an investment long term with Ha-Seong Kim to see if he's going to be somebody that can be more of an everyday or even just a utility type player part of the mix, or with an Alex Freeland to see if he can be a future part of the mix either at shortstop or at third base with Mookie Mookie Betts maybe eventually going over to second base, or Max Muncy eventually moving off of the position. I think if they got a Kyle Tucker, you could make some of that investment, make some of that trade-off, because Kyle Tucker is as good of a hitter, and you're going to have a really solid lineup to where you can make that investment and expect to get enough production at the top of the order. The top to middle of the order is going to be phenomenal. You can spare some of the plate appearances during the regular season, see what you got. I think that would be actually a pretty good thing for the Dodgers to be able to do. The question is, how do you, once you get to October, make sure that you don't have too much swing and miss in the lineup?
Trade deadline, Ohtani, if you need. Trade deadline.
You very well could be trade deadline. It very well could be we need somebody like Miguel Rojas to be in there just so he doesn't swing and miss, and hopefully he's able to get on base. Those are going to be some of the Kike. Maybe you could be able to add to the mix as well. There's a lot of different question marks, but you look for the best talent. If they go out and get Bo Bichette, I think it is Ha-Seong Kim, Alex Freeland. They're going to be in AAA / potentially trade targets. I think Alex Freeland very well could be one of those guys that you could look for potentially being traded, because he would be blocking several of the different positions that Freeland would be able to play going forward.
I just don't think Tommy Edman's a good enough offensive player to just say, hey, we're not going to give the proper amount of at-bats to Ha-Seong Kim to get him to the position to where he's at. I just don't see the upside to that, because Tommy Edman just kind of is what he is. Really valuable player in the correct role, not a great offensive player, and not really the type of offensive player that you would profile on a 9-hole in terms of getting on base. So if it comes down to Ha-Seong Kim and Tommy Edman, I would favor to giving Ha-Seong Kim a lot of major league at bats. Now, I know Hep's saying here, go get Tucker and then go trade for Brendan Donovan. Now that would be
dream
having your
season.
Merry Christmas and having your birthday cake and eating it too at that point.
Yes.
That would be insane.
Yes, that would complete the lineup. That would more than complete the lineup. You're talking about an absolute juggernaut. And honestly, if you're looking out to win a World Series in the next couple of years, if you're able to sign Kyle Tucker to a short-term deal and then you don't trade any prospects to go out and acquire him, you know what? You could sell me on going ahead and making both of those. But there's there's obviously the first step with signing Kyle Tucker or trading for Brendan Donovan. That has to be completed first before that's a realistic possibility. But if they do that, man, that would be insane. And that would fix so many issues. We
got 8 minutes left, and I want to talk about a guy I think people are sleeping on. And this is a guy that is one of the most, I'm not going to say best players, because he's had a lot of holes in his game. And I think, I asked him about it whenever I interviewed him, right? Yep. I'm not throwing shade. I'm stating facts. Chris Newell has swung and missed a lot in his career. Okay, that's what's been holding him back. But I think you could make the case that in the second half of last year, the light bulb went off for Chris Newell, and he started taking all those tools. One of the questions I asked Jaron Elkins, how do you take all these tools that you have and turn them into results on a field? It's taking Chris Newell a long time to go through that process, as in terms of take all these tools. He can steal all these bases. He can hit for home runs. He has a great arm. Tremendous defender. In a lot of ways, he's the 5-tool guy. Yep. But how do you take all those tools and actually turn that into consistent results on a baseball field? That has been elusive for Chris Newell, no doubt about it. I think you could make the case that maybe the light bulb, but I think you definitely make the case that it started to go off maybe in the last quarter of last year, maybe even the last half of last year. So as proof or not proof, take us through the numbers, Austin. Yeah, so Chris Newell, as an overall player, there's just too much swing and miss in his game. Yes. Last year, it was a 30.5% strikeout percentage. That's going to be too high, especially at the AA level. As he moves forward, he has to be able to make more consistent contact. But if you talk about the overall completeness of some of the other skills, he's got some speed, 24 stolen bases last year, 31 stolen bases combined the year before, and he's got a ton of power. But can you take us through like the last quarter of last season? Can you do that? I'm going to give you more than the last quarter. Okay, I'm going to give you from June 5th all the way to the end of last year. June 5th to the end of last year, this is 339 plate appearances for Chris Newell, 264, 354, 469. That's a 131 WRC plus. Wow. June 6th or June 5th through the end of the season. What was the strikeout rate during that time? It's a 12.5 walk percentage and about a 27% strikeout percentage. So it's still a little bit too high.
but he was able to do a lot of good things last year and make some steps in the right direction. And with the skill set and the tools that he's able to have, I think he is. I would anticipate this upcoming year probably him making that jump to the AAA level.
Yeah, I think he'll start there. I think he has a good chance to start there.
I think he's absolutely going to start, especially with the amount of players, outfielders that are coming up or likely to come up to the AA level next year. I think that's going to be the best place for him. He's played a full year last year at AA and half or a good chunk of the season, 113 plate appearances the year before. I think the AAA level is going to be a really good test for him, and it's going to really push some of the boundaries for him with some of the swing and miss that's part of this game. But when he makes contact, he makes really good contact. He's a pretty good fielder. Chris Newell is a very good baseball player. He has last year played a whole lot of center field too. So if you're talking about somebody with decent amount of speed that can hit for a lot of power and play the center field position, I think that you have a lot of different skill sets and tools that you like with Chris Newell. We'll see if he's able to make enough consistent contact and provide enough thump to where, man, he can make a difference on the baseball field.
Okay, what's going on with Logan Wagner? This is a super talented switch hitting. I think he still probably profiles as a third baseman. He played a lot of second base. I think that's just to get him on the field because they had Jake Geloff and Jordan Thompson and all sorts of different types of guys that could play the infield.
Yep.
And so, to be honest with you, Logan Wagner has not quite hit his stride as a professional. What's going on with him?
Okay, so with Wags, first off, Logan Wagner, incredible human being.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If the game of baseball does not work for him, you're going to be talking about him being a youth pastor, being a pastor. You're going to be talking about him doing so much for such great things. But he still has a lot of really good skill sets on the baseball field that he's able to provide. A little bit too much swing and miss that is part of his game right now. It's about a 26% strikeout percentage, what it was last year.
For the power he's given, especially.
For the power that he's been able to provide as well. But still, last year, 15 home runs, 23 doubles, provided some power part of the mix. He just didn't make quite enough contact to be able to tap in that quite a bit, but still very patient at the plate. At 14.5% walk percentage at the plate last year with 18 stolen bases, triple slash line only hit 216. That's got to go up, which I think comes with some of the swing and miss he has in this game. But a 345 on base percentage and 380 slugging, that's still equated to a 111 WRC plus at the high A level. He is somebody where, man, he's got a lot of good skill sets. Switch hitter at the plate, can play a decent third base, play some second base as well. If he can make enough contact, I think that's going to be the biggest thing going forward is if he's able to make enough consistent contact with his plate approach where he's been able to draw a lot of walks. He can do a lot of really good things on the baseball field. And if baseball doesn't work out, he's going to be all right because he's got a super bright future ahead of him.
Here's another guy that I'm really high on. He's the Chris Newell story. You know, he just kind of had been just kind of struggling around and not really he's kind of had patches here and there. Do we go, okay, well, Jake Geloff, man, this dude's super talented. And he is, this guy. But at the end of last year, we got to see exactly what Jake Geloff is all about and just how good he can be. I think he has really soft hands at third base. I think he has a chance to be basically a right-handed Max Muncy with substantially better defense. Here's some defense right there from Jake Geloff right there. That's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good right there, okay? So I know he hasn't been great to this point in his career in terms of the result. But that is a bomb right there. But he could do that with the best of them. I think when the light bulb goes off for him, of course, his brother Adam is in the major league, so he knows what Major League Baseball is all about. He played at Virginia. He made the World Series, all that kind of thing. So he knows what high-level baseball is. I just think when the adjustments finally kick in and he stays healthy, I think Jake Geloff's a guy that could move real fast and make Dodgers fans go, wow, where did this come from and who is this guy? I really think he has that capability if the light bulb goes off.
Yeah, a lot of people, because of the struggles that he had when he first entered in Great Lakes, which in 2024 with Great Lakes was not great for Jake Geloff at the plate at all. It was a 75 WRC plus for him. And with some of the struggles that he had early in the season, he started the season hurt, ended up coming to Great Lakes, and it wasn't great to start the season. A lot of people gave up on Jake Geloff. if you gave up on Jake Geloff, you missed a phenomenal end to the season in what was he had some of the most clutch factor that you could have on the baseball field. Just the overall numbers of what he had from July 24th. Again, this was during a playoff run for Great Lakes, during more than a month stretch for a playoff run with Great Lakes, month and a half stretch. Let me get the number of plate appearances, 160 plate appearances. Jake Geloff, 255, 331 with a 582 slugging. That's a 150 WRC plus.
Strikeout rate, what is it?
Strikeout rate during that stretch was a little high at about 26%.
Yeah.
But
that's
during
not terrible.
But he had 13 doubles and 11 bombs on the season. And it wasn't just that he had bombs during the games. It was he had home runs in very clutch key situations. I remember because last week of the season came down between Great Lakes and Lake County. Jake Geloff during the Thursday game, the Loons needed to win 4 out of 6. The series was tied 1-1. They needed to win the Thursday game. I think it was a big ski performance that he had. This is one of the home runs that he had against Wisconsin earlier in the week, which is just absolute bomb. But Jake Geloff came with 2 outs, game tied at 2, hit a go-ahead home run in the 9th inning during that series with Lake County, and he did that consistently over the past month. There was 10 home runs that he had.
No doubt.
If he taps into the pull side power, which he did towards the end of last year, man, is it go far. And if he's able to do that consistently at the AA level, and as he continues to go up the ranks, if he taps into the pull side power, even if there is a decent amount of swinging miss, I think he is somebody that can go out ahead and have a lot of success, especially Rich was about 10.5%. So he's decent enough overall last year.
What's Max Muncy's walk rate typically?
Max Muncy is typically around 14 to 14.5%.
See, Jake Geloff needs to get up around that. That way he can strike out a little bit more and it'd be okay, which is going to allow him to hit a little bit more power. That would be my suggestion.
Yep. And last year, just overall, it was about 14%, 14.3% in 2024. This year, if you combined all the numbers, it was about 12.5% is what you were looking at as a walk percentage for Jake Geloff. So if he's able to draw a decent amount of walks and he's able to hit for a good amount of power, he's going to have a lot of success.
And again, it's all about projection. It's all about, hey, the light bulb goes off. What is he capable of doing moving forward? The last guy we're going to talk about, this is a guy that Dodgers fans that just kind of paid attention on the surface, which is probably 99.9% of them. They have the perception that Jackson Ferris struggled last year. And I think a lot of that comes from they expect him to be perfect because they've heard the name. They've heard how great he is. They thought he might be in the major leagues next year. And then right off the bat, probably whenever, because really from about the All-Star break on, we don't even cover prospects much at all. We don't even hardly do it down the farm because it's like all about the major league team at that point because the trade deadline's gone. You don't need to know who they are for that. And that's really when he started kicking in and throwing his best baseball. And so I think it's kind of deceptive to fans because I don't think they realize how good Jackson Ferris recovered last year and finished last season, which to me is a better situation because now you got to see how he's going to handle adversity and handle 4 or 5, maybe 6 starts that aren't good and handle failure. How does a guy do that mentally? I think we saw him conquer that with abs. I don't even think he paid attention to the failure. It didn't bother him at all. When I got to talk to him, it didn't. Yeah. So I think that's actually a plus that he struggled early on last year and then recovered. Can you talk about the last half of his season?
Yeah, and this is back-to-back seasons where the early part of the season wasn't super standoutish. It wasn't something that stood off the page for Jackson Ferris, but once he was able to settle in, especially on the second half of the season, he was absolutely dominant. Let's go back to 2024 to be able to see what he did during his last 12 starts in 2024 between his last 5 starts in Great Lakes and his time at Tulsa, early in Tulsa. He had 12 starts in that time period. A 1.59 ERA Jackson Ferris had in 2024 with a 25.5% strikeout percentage. Really high hopes. Struggled a little bit towards the early part of the season, but if you go from June 21st, the second half of the season, his last 14 starts, Jackson Ferris in the second half of the season, in 2024, 1.59, 2025, 1.95 ERA.
Yeah, I knew he was good. I didn't know he was that good, though.
He was very good in the second half of the season with a 24% strikeout percentage. Walk percentage a little bit of high at about 12.8%. But still, Jackson Ferris, he is somebody that, at least the past 2 seasons, has been somebody that has really, once he has settled in and as the summer has gotten hot, Jackson Ferris has become really good during that time period. And even
workhorse too. In 2024, he went 6 innings like 11 different times. It seems like something like that.
Oh, yeah. No, and those 14 starts that he had last year, it was 74 innings pitched. It was consistently 5, a couple of 6, 1 7-inning start that he had, a 6 2/3 start. It was pretty consistent for Jackson Ferris down the stretch of the amount of innings that he's been able to provide. So, and again, he's going to be entering into his age 22 season. This was a 21-year-old kid that was playing at the Double-A level. He is well beyond his years of what he's been able to do as being much younger than the average Texas League type of pitcher. So you would expect him, we'll see where exactly he gets to start, if he starts again at Tulsa or if he makes the jump immediately up to Oklahoma City. If it starts a little bit slower, we've seen this before, just wait for Jackson Ferris to settle in.
Throw him up to Oklahoma City. That'd be my suggestion.
I think
he's ready for a new challenge. I don't think there's anything. He conquered the Double-A thing. You just went over the numbers.
Yep.
That's the Chris Newell deal. Send his ass to Oklahoma City. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I can just tell you, if you're around this guy, which I've been around him, not a lot, but enough, and I'm pretty good with being able to read body language because it's what I've done as a coach my entire adult career, right? Whether it be good, bad, confident, not confident. You know, my job as a coach, hey, this kid, I don't feel the confident aura with this kid. I need to do something to piss him off, to get him mad at me, to get him competitive, or I just need to say, give him some encouragement, whatever that may be, to shoot some artificial confidence into this kid, or maybe this kid's too confident, and I need to break him down a little bit to get him, you know, that you're either humble or getting ready to be humbled. Maybe I need to be the one to humble him before the game that we're getting ready to play does it. You know, so I say that to say I'm pretty good at reading body language. I've been doing it my whole entire adult career. And I can tell you he carries himself with, yeah, I'm good. I mean, I'm not arrogant or anything, but didn't you freaking watch me pitch? You know I'm good. I don't have to tell you I'm good. You can see it. He has that aura to it. It's not arrogance, but he has that confidence that, well, hell yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm going to be in the major league someday. Of course I am. Have you not watched me pitch? He just has that confidence to him, and it's so cool to be around. And I can tell you it's infectious to his teammates. They love being around him because they love that swag. That's a part of Jackson Ferris that I think goes underrated. So I would throw him to AAA Oklahoma City next year and see how. But plus, at AAA, you're going to be facing major league hitters. You're going to be facing guys that either on major league rehab or guys that you know, Steri Ruiz, guys who have been in the major leagues that have major league discipline and that kind of thing. So I think he needs that challenge. Austin, we've gone a little bit longer than I wanted to. We always do because we had so much fun, but you had one last comment here.
Yeah, I was just about to mention with just 2 comments with Jackson Ferris. I go back to his last start that he had with Great Lakes, which was in Cedar Rapids. Let's not forget, 8 innings, no hits, what he had in his last start against the Cedar Rapids Colonels the year after the Loons lost to the Colonels in Cedar Rapids. That's one of my favorite starts to go back to. And we talk about Adam Serenowski potentially being available to make his big league debut towards the end of 2026. Jackson Ferris also is going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft after the 2026 season, and he's a year ahead of Adam Serenowski. So if we think Adam Serenowski might have a chance to be able to make his big league debut as Epidite to see you later, I think there's a very good chance that we could see Jackson Ferris at some point during the 2026 season. I would.
He's ahead in line of Serenowski, I would say.
He absolutely is ahead of line of Adam Serenowski. I would hope that they wouldn't burn one of Jackson Ferris's option years if they didn't have to, but he would be one of the guys that would be first in line if they have to go past some of the guys with options and they didn't have somebody on a minor league deal that they wanted to go ahead and call up. If they wanted to go to their minor league depth, assuming that Jackson Ferris pitches well at the AAA level, he's going to be one of the guys that's going to be called upon, or as far as probably the first in line to be called upon as the next wave of pitchers coming up through the system.
I just don't think the moment will ever be too big for him. I think the bigger the moment, the better. Now, I'm not saying he's always going to pitch well, but I just don't ever think if he does pitch bad, it's going to be because he couldn't handle the moment. I just don't ever see that being the case for him. Austin, awesome job tonight. Like, no clue what we're going to talk about. Next thing you know, we're into. You do a wonderful job with these conversations. I can't thank you enough for all the wonderful work you do here on Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. I would not want to do this without you, so thank you so much, Austin.
Oh, I appreciate you, Casey. Yeah, we've had some fun shows that we had. Obviously, you had the show that you got to talk about, the built or bought, which is always a fun conversation that you had earlier in the week. I had the chance to be able to go through a lot of projection models, which is a very niche type of topic
Yeah.
to be able to talk about. And truly transparency, going into the show, we had no notes. We had no idea what we were going to be talking about into the show. We had the arbitration type thing, which we were able to talk a lot about that. But whenever we're able to come into here, always stuff is able to come up with Dodgers baseball, and especially with as much knowledge as we like to say that we have about the guys in the farm system, and because we've spent a lot of time watching these guys down at the farm system and studying all the different numbers, we can always be able to talk about that. But it's the people that come in, support the show, for the super chats that we're able to get during the show today.
Absolutely.
I can't thank you guys enough, and just for your continued support for us here, Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. For us, as our hobby, something that we like to do for fun, this is always is fun.
Again, and to all of you wonderful Dodgers dogs out there, to both of the super chats, I can't pronounce the Korean name. I apologize for that. Thank you so much, Matt Kramer. You are a rock star. Hepatitis, see you later. Thank you so much for joining. Come on back to our chats. I saw Ala Minerva in there. I saw CNAV. To all of you wonderful Dodgers dogs out there and everybody else that was in the chat tonight, thank you so much. We appreciate all the great support you give us. And until next time, don't forget, it's a great day to be a Dodger.